Well, hello again. I know it's been a couple of weeks, but I'm back yet again. And again, kind of. I just kind of wanted to update you on the struggle that is trying to get all this stuff together. If I could turn the camera around, I could show you everything that's sitting on this desk, but it would be almost comical as we continue to try to get everything together for YouTube show and podcasts and such. And then there's that moment when you say to yourself, I know exactly where I should do this from. And then you realize, boy, was I ever completely wrong. If you've ever experienced that, please leave a comment and let me know. I have another office I'm going to go to eventually because yeah, you can even see the cleaning stuff up in the corner up there. Yeah, because this is the laundry room. And to be really honest, when I had my knee replacement surgery in February of 2023, I broadcast from out here for 3 weeks. And quite honestly, it's really a nice place for radio broadcasts. You've got right here, there's a window. You can see the light coming in and a nice desk right here. And believe it or not, it's actually fairly quiet out here because there are clothes hanging that you can't see around me. The only thing you can't see around me that muffle the sound. So it had a lot of advantages, and it was great for that. I could even fit the icing machine I had to have for my knee out here. But when it came to, hey, we've got this cabinet out there, let's make this work. Well, it's just not gonna. So we're going to be over in my office, which is going to be, and I call it an office. It's not really that. I don't know if you have one at home. Most of the time, offices become, kind of like that other bedroom catch-all. So we're going to put everything. I don't care what it is. Where right now it's just like, wow, I want to really put it up. I really want it just out of sight. Let's put it up there. You got one of those, don't you? I know you do. So do we. We've got a couple of them. Anyway, so it's going to end up being there. Although there are two bedrooms upstairs that are empty as well, and who knows, we could turn that into something. But this is a little bit of what I've been collecting in case you're interested. Like right there, we have, pardon me, I've got to do the weatherman's point. Right there, we have the Tulsa Talents football. Back when I was still broadcasting Talents football, they all signed one for me. And this one actually went into the stands. The old rule there with the Talents, you could keep the ball if it went in the stands, right? This one went in the stands, and actually my wife and daughter caught it sitting out in the stands. And then they brought it and said, hey, look what we did. And I said, well, we need to give that back. And we were going to give it back. And they said, I'm going to sign it for you. So got a Talents ball here to sign for me. You might recognize those, and you might recognize that name. These were signed for me by Muhammad Ali. And there's a story a long time ago, and I'll tell the story now. If you've listened to the radio show ever in the 40 plus years I was on, you might already know it. In the very first fight night that used to be put on here, and I think they still do a version of it, but in the very first one, Mr. Ali was coming in as the honored guest. And because of my history with my daughter and her issues, her brain tumor issues and her surgeries and that, they wanted someone in the media to shadow him all day, but they wanted someone who would be understanding, if you will, of his illness. So they asked me. And I was truly more than honored. So I went into the radio station, KRMG back then. I did the morning version of what I needed to do, did my sports cast, and I went and met Mr. Ali. And I met his handlers, and we discussed the day, or they did. I just listened in, and then we went in his limo, and we were going around town to meet people. Went to the Tulsa Boys Home, a lot of different places, and it was pretty magical. Now he was in the early stages of his disease, Parkinson's, and when he was medicated initially, he was very quiet because that medicine hits you pretty quickly, and it made him very, very relaxed and reserved, if you will. As it started to wear off, he was fantastic. He would get out of the car and he would spar with the kids and things. And we were sitting in the car in the limo. It was just him and me, the driver up front, and his handler. And we were driving from one location to another, and it was time for midday sports. So I pulled out my old cell phone. You remember the old cell phones that were in a bag and just enormous, enormous things, though they were like a 3-watt cell phone. You could talk to the moon, and they were great. That was the early version. So I whipped this thing out. And I dialed the station. I said, yeah, I'm here for midday sports. They knew where I was, of course. And then I just did midday sports. Now, I'm only gifted with 3 things: the ability to retain fat cells, the inability to retain hair, and a memory. And so everything I did that morning, I just remembered. And so I just did it without looking at anything. And I finished and I hung up, and Mr. Ali looked at me, and I do a very bad Muhammad Ali imitation, but I'm going to do it anyway. He looked at me and he said, were you just on the radio? And I said, yes, sir, I was. And he looked at me again and he said, maybe you're not as dumb as you look. And I laughed and I said, well, I sure hope not. And then comes the really magical part. he said, "Are you married?" And I said, "Yes, sir." And he said, "Call your wife." So I picked up the cell phone and I dialed home. Now, Christine knew, of course, where I was and who I was with. I dial home and I hear her say, "Hello?" And he says, "Christine, this is the greatest of all time." And there's just a pause, as you can imagine. Who's going? What are you going to say? She said, "Oh, Mr. Ali, it's so nice to hear from you. Thank you so much." They chatted for a few minutes, and then when they finished, he said, "I just have one more question for you before I go." And she said, "Yes, sir. What's that?" He said, "Who's this blonde with your wife?" And it just threw me right under the bus. No blonde, of course. Christine knew. We all had a nice laugh. We spent the next part of a couple hours with him. And then that night, Christine and I were to sit at his table at the very first fight night. And when we got there, because I'd been with him and because they trusted me, they put me on one side and Christine on the other to kind of protect him. And when she walked up, and she was dressed, as you can imagine, dressed up, so was I. I had the tux on, so I looked like Buddy Hackett or a penguin. You don't know who Buddy Hackett is, Google that. And I looked like that. And she walked up, and she had a very pretty dress on, and she gave him a little kiss on the cheek, and he pretended to faint, and his handlers just went crazy. But that night, he said, "Can I sign something for you?" So there they are, that he signed for me. He signed a lot of stuff. So there's stuff out there, but he signed that for me, which was really cool. Got a Tulsa helmet, as you can see up here. There's a Union helmet. I broadcast both those games. There's actually no, Union helmet's up there. Sorry, that's the Talons helmet over there. That basketball was signed by Nolan Richardson and one of his best teams for me. Nolan and I have been friends for a long time. Scott Edgar's on this ball and so many of Nolan's great early teams. This is not the NIT team. A couple years after that, right before he left. You can't see it, but at the top there's a bowling ball, and there's actually an Oklahoma football up there signed by Billy Sims, Steve Owens, and Jason White as well, which was something that they used to do anyway. And then this one is really cool. My wife and I met when she was a trainer at the University of Tulsa. And of course, my history broadcasting games there. When she left, when she graduated, they signed a ball for her, and someone found it about 3 weeks ago and gave it to us. And so that's got Coach Rader. As a matter of fact, there's Dave right there. There's Dave Rader right there on there. This has, Jerry Ostrowski and all the guys that were on that, TJ Rubley, all the guys that were on those fantastic teams when she was there, and that leading up to that 91 Freedom Bowl, where Marshall Faulk got beat because Tulsa was better. Anyway, and there's more stuff. I'm kind of trying to drag it all out. Somewhere there's a ball here that was signed for me by the 1974 national championship team at Oklahoma. And that's a long story, but I was a junior high school player in 73. I won an award. My coach gave me a football. I mailed it to Coach Switzer. And I'm just blind. I mailed it to him and I said, "Hey, look, this was given to me as an award. I was just wondering if I'd have a couple of people sign it." And I included in it every newspaper clipping I could gather from the OU Nebraska game in 71. And I got the ball back. I didn't get back the clipping. You see, Coach Switzer kept those. And years later, when I first met him and interviewed him, I asked him about it. I said, "Do you remember somebody sending you a ball?" And he said, "I got a little ball." I said, "I understand. But somebody sent you a bunch of clippings for OU 71, OU Nebraska 71. He went, "Was that you?" And he remembered. He remembered that I had sent him that, and he kept the clippings, which was fine. I've got that ball. The Selmans are on there. Steve Davis is on there. Joe Washington is on there. So I'll dig it out because it's around here somewhere too. Anyway, we're going to be moving locations. And as I said, we're not just going to do sports because look, hey, they take the show off the radio, right? And what happens? Ollie Gordon gets arrested. Tulsa gets $38 million in gifts. Oklahoma brings Coach Venables, Coach Switzer, Joe C., Gene Branchek here to Tulsa, and they go to the SEC. I mean, a guy leaves for a while. Look, you let it all fall to HE double toothpicks. All right, we'll do that. We'll get back and get some football. We're also going to do a lot of regular life stuff. I'm about to travel, so I think I'll drop one next week on some travel things. I'm going on a very interesting cruise that I'll have to tell you about. We're going to do food, too. Got a friend who's a barbecue judge. I mentioned we're going to have him on, Randy Saffel, and other suggestions if you would like to make. Anyway, I know this is a disaster. I get it, but I've always, my entire career, what I've always said is be you. Well, I'm kind of a disaster to begin with. I mean, from jump, right out of the womb, I hit the ground probably on the wrong foot. And I've been fighting it ever since. But we're going to get it figured out. This is just part of it. I just wanted you to see it and let you know I'm still alive out here. And we're still going to be coming your way. But, what I want you to do is have the best day possible. Stay out of the sun as much as you can. And I'll see you again soon.